Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Anapanasati bhikkhave bhavita bahuli kata mahappala hoti mahanisansati. Dear Dhamma friends, as you all can remember, we were discussing Anapanasati Sutta, which is available in Majjhima Nikaya, and we were going step by step. Basically, this Anapanasati Sutta consists of 16 steps at the beginning, where Buddha mentioned 4 steps helps to fulfill the Kayanupassana Satipatthana, that is the foundation of mindfulness on the body. And then the second quadrant, then Buddha mentioned that it is fulfilling the Vedananupassana, mindfulness on feelings. And then the third quadrant, which is helpful for developing Chittanupassana, mindfulness on mind. And then the fourth quadrant, which is helpful to develop Vipassana, basically the Dhammanupassana, that is the mindfulness on various phenomena. So likewise, it's a fairly comprehensive way that Buddha explains this whole methodology. And as you all can remember, in that occasion there are many arahants, there are many non-returners, there are many once returners, there are many stream winners, and there are many other diligent, ardent practitioners in the crowd. And Buddha mentioned this whole story or whole methodology to that very enthusiastic crowd, and they are quite diligent and they are practicing to the best of their ability. And then they were practicing several other meditations as well. So as explained in the sutta, some are practicing 4 foundations of mindfulness, some are practicing 4 kinds of striving, some are spiritual powers, some are practicing 5 faculties, some are practicing 5 powers, bala, and then some are practicing enlightenment factors, and some are practicing noble eightfold path. And that is where how one is developing or progressing in the path. And then separately some are practicing the 4 Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity. And then certain others are practicing foulness or loathsomeness of the body, and certain others are practicing impermanence, and then certain others are practicing Anapanasati. So basically the crowd that Buddha is addressing practicing different things, but now Buddha is coming up with a new methodology which is helpful to practice, which is helpful for everyone. It is not limited to a particular group, but it is suitable for everyone. So that is one important thing that we can remember or we can understand. And further, as we discussed, there are let me see whether I can get that. So the method that explained in this sutta, the first 4 attributed to Kayanupassana, second 4 Vedananupassana, third 4 Chittanupassana, and when we reach Dhammanupassana section, particularly the Vipassana approach is highlighted. And say one is looking at things as impermanent, one is looking at things as fading away, Viraganupassi, and then certain others looking at things how they are ceasing, Nirodhanupassi, and then one have the attitude of relinquishment, that is the Patinissagganupassi. So as we discussed last time, we are actually able to understand the whole thing where the Dhammanupassana is applicable to all 3 sections, all previous 3 sections. So that is an interesting point to understand where. So as I am showing here, so there are 4 sections. Dhammanupassana is applicable to all previous 3 sections. Actually, not at the very beginning. So unlike Satipatthana Sutta, where each section is fairly comprehensive and cover all three aspects of Satipatthana. That is the beginning of Satipatthana, that is the establishment of Satipatthana, and then the contemplation, Satipatthana Bhavana, where one is understanding arising and passing away nature of various phenomena, and then how one is developing Noble Eightfold Path. So these are the three aspects of Satipatthana, and those three aspects are concisely fulfilled in each section or each Kammatthana available in Satipatthana Sutta. But here in Anapanasati Sutta, it is a little different. At the very first level, Kayanupassana simply tries to calm down bodily formations, in-breath and out-breath. So, developing the mindfulness perspective and then developing necessary amount of mindfulness and concentration, one slowly calms down all bodily formations, and the Vipassana part is not really highlighted. And when reaches to Vedananupassana, one recognizes different feelings and perceptions, signs, and that is also properly handled without getting attached or without getting repelled. So you are trying to maintain a proper perspective, correct perspective, that is equanimous, observing perspective one is trying to maintain. And as a result of that, those mental formations, Vedana and Sanya, feelings and perceptions, are also properly calmed down. Still there is no Vipassana to higher level. And when we reach Chittanupassana, there also one now allow the mind to little relax. As a result of that, mind might get various thoughts, maybe related to the past, maybe related to the future, and maybe even grasping what is happening in present moment. So still one has fair amount of mindfulness and clear comprehension. So that is why one is capable of developing Chittanupassana. And even though mind little wander, one is not really bothered or one is not really panicked about it, because one have fair amount of understanding and fair amount of confidence of the path. Clear comprehension and mindfulness is fairly established. So he is not really bothered when mind is behaving like that. Rather, he can look at it objectively. When there is a lustful thought happens, he can look at it objectively. When a wholesome thought, say compassionate thought, dispassionate thought arising in the mind, one can look at it objectively. Either it is wholesome or unwholesome, so one is trying to understand their conditioned nature. One is not promoting wholesome aspects, one is not promoting unwholesome aspects. Rather, wholesome and unwholesome both sankharas are dependently arisen, are dependently arising and passing away. So that nature one is trying to understand. So as a result of that, mind is going to calm down, and again ultimately mind get released. Vimochayan chittang asasi samiti sikkati. Now when mind is released, that has to be protected, that has to be further seasoned, emphasized, cultivated. So that is where now Buddha is talking the Dhammanupassana, where Vipassana techniques are applied in order to further enhance that freedom of mind. Now the Vipassana is available. So these four Vipassana techniques, Buddha said, one can apply to the Kayanupassana, one can apply to Vedananupassana, one can apply to Chittanupassana. Because now mind is in a very relaxed position, so probably one may encounter various bodily phenomena as well. So if you want to little bit go back to Kayanupassana, so you can practice it, but with the understanding of their impermanent nature, with the understanding of their dispassionate nature, or the fading away nature, and with the understanding how they are ceasing. And again one is having the attitude of relinquishment. So this is how one is now practicing Kayanupassana. You can see previously, as the novice practitioner, he didn't bother much about these aspects. Can you hear now?
Now we can hear you. Yes, now we can hear you again.
Okay. Sorry. So let me explain again a little bit then. So when we reach Chittanupassana, one is able to understand the mind because You are in a more relaxed atmosphere, and as a result of that, slowly one is able to allow mind to little play, and that playing mind one can understand. So since you have fair amount of mindfulness and clear comprehension, you are not panicked by seeing the behavior of the mind. Rather, you can look at it objectively. So mind may wander and may latch on the past or in the future, but maybe getting maybe lustful thoughts or unwholesome thoughts, even wholesome thoughts, but one can look at them objectively. So as a result of that, one is able to calm down the mind without feeding any of those. As a result of that, now mind get freed. So that is the 12th step, liberating the mind. So you are now liberating the mind, so you may encounter freedom of mind, and that is being further cultivated by applying 4 techniques available in the Dhammanupassana section. So in Dhammanupassana section, the Vipassana, 4 Vipassana techniques are emphasized: seeing everything as impermanent, seeing everything as fading away, and how they are ceasing and one reaches the cessation, and again maintaining an attitude of relinquishment, patinissagganupassī. So these 4 techniques now you can apply to Kayanupassana, to Vedananupassana, and to Chittanupassana. As you can see in the early stages as a novice, one didn't do this kind of Vipassana techniques in the Kayanupassana, in the Satipatthana approach, in this Anapanasati approach. But now when you are with hands-on experience, now even you get Kayanupassana, practice Kayanupassana, now you are looking at it with the Vipassana point of view. Even if you get different feelings and perceptions, you are looking at them with Vipassana point of view. Even when you are seeing different sankhara, different thoughts, mental formations, at the Chittanupassana level, that also now you are looking at objectively, and again seeing them as impermanent, seeing how they are fading away, how they are rising and passing away, particularly the cessation part, and maintaining an attitude of relinquishment. So this is how the 4 foundations of mindfulness are fairly interlinked and helping each other, and particularly the Dhammanupassana is applicable to all previous 3 foundations of mindfulness. So this is the approach mentioned in the Anapanasati Sutta, which is little different from the Satipatthana approach. Now, when one is developing all 4 foundations of mindfulness, now Buddha mentions one is able to develop 7 enlightenment factors. So 7 enlightenment factors, probably you can remember there are enlightenment factors. So they are called enlightenment factors because they cause to mind get enlightened, or mind get understanding, mind get proper wisdom. Bodhaya samvattatiti ko bhikkave bojjangati uchati. So on one occasion, one monk go and ask from the Buddha, Bojjanga. So this is the term used. Why is it called Bojjanga? Why are they called Bojjanga? Then Buddha mentioned, Bodhaya samvattanti ko bhikkhu tasma bojjangati uchati. Since these certain factors are causing the mind to get enlightened, causing the mind to get having proper wisdom, so that is why it is mentioned as Bojjanga, enlightenment factors. So there are 7 enlightenment factors: mindfulness, that is sati; investigation, that is dhammavicaya; then effort, that is viriya; then rapture, that is piti; tranquility, that is passaddhi; concentration, that is samadhi; and equanimity, that is upekkha. So now Buddha explains in this Anapanasati Sutta how one is developing each and every enlightenment factor by going through different foundations of mindfulness. So it is not that one is developing enlightenment factors only when one reaches the fulfillment of 4 foundations of mindfulness. Rather, even at the Kayanupassana level, to some extent one is developing enlightenment factors. At the Vedananupassana level, again one is developing enlightenment factors. In the Chittanupassana level, again one is developing enlightenment factors. And when one is developing Dhammanupassana, there are also one is developing enlightenment factors. But the proportions may be different. The emphasis given to the enlightenment factors, certain enlightenment factors may vary. Say for example, in the very early stages, the investigation may be less, but the mindfulness concentration may be developing. Suppose at the very higher level in the Dhammanupassana, say the investigation may be very high, concentration may be moderate. So likewise, these enlightenment factors, if you consider the proportion of each and every enlightenment factor, so those may vary depending on how you are approaching and which part you are developing. Now let's go to the enlightenment factors, how they are developing at the Kayanupassana level. So 7 enlightenment factors, how they are fulfilled in the Kayanupassana section. Now Buddha explained, bhikkhus, on whatever occasion a bhikkhu abides contemplating the body as a body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Now this is how one is approaching the meditation, as we discussed in the early sections in the Kayanupassana, where one is trying to eliminate covetousness and covetousness and hatred, and then putting ardent effort, and now trying to establish mindfulness on the body. Now what he is seeing in the body, and how he is seeing in the body, and how he is mindful on the body. So this is how actually we have to investigate. Now at the very early stages, you are simply trying to establish mindfulness, because you may be starting with a distracted mind. Mind is jumping here, there, to the past, to the future. It's a kind of a monkey mind. So at that time, we can't say that much enlightenment factors are developing. Rather, you are trying to establish mindfulness. Suppose you come into a situation, now the mindfulness has established. So you are able to keep your attention on the body. Suppose you may be even doing Anapanasati, and now mind is not wandering. Each and every in-breath you can be fully mindful. Each and every out-breath you can be fully mindful. So we are fairly constant. You are able to maintain a consistent mindfulness each and every breath. So this is where Buddha mentioned, now the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, sati sambojjhanga, is going to develop. So it is not that the very early levels that you are struggling to establish mindfulness that the enlightenment factor is developing. Rather, once the mindfulness is established, then the beginning of enlightenment factor mindfulness is happening. So therefore Buddha mentioned, on whatever occasion unremitting mindfulness is established in a bhikkhu, on that occasion the mindfulness enlightenment factor is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in him. So the mindfulness enlightenment factor is now established, and then that is aroused, that is beginning now, and you are not stopping, you are continuing it now. Again and again new breath happens and you are mindful about it. Again and again out breath happens, you are mindful about it. Now this is the development part. This is how you are continuing. Bhavita bahuli kata. So you are developing, you are doing it repeatedly. So that is where slowly the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is developing. And as you are continuing it, suppose you are doing it for several years. So as you are doing it for long time, with this practice, with this meditation, mindfulness enlightenment factor is coming to the completion or the fulfillment. And now you are not limited to mindfulness, and we are encouraged to investigate the phenomena. So as I discussed in the Anapanasati level, the establishment of mindfulness is the early stage, and then you got to investigate whether the breath is long, whether the breath is short, what are the differences between in-breath and out-breath, where it is exactly touching, or whether it is warm or cool, from which nostril it is coming in, from which nostril it is going out. So these are the investigations. So you are very mindfully, silently, carefully examining. So this careful examination, investigation, is the way to develop investigation enlightenment factor, or what you call the Dhamma Vicaya Sambojjhanga. So therefore Buddha mentioned, on whatever occasion, abiding thus mindful, a bhikkhu investigates and examines that state with wisdom and embarks upon a full inquiry into it. On that occasion, the investigation of states, enlightenment factor, is aroused in him, and he develops it, and by development, it comes to fulfillment in him. So at this time, you need to remember that if you have used in-breath, out-breath, out-breath, so that kind of say what you call noting, that has to be stopped, because now you have to do a careful investigation. So you don't need, it is not a kind of a gross investigation, but a very careful examination you need to do. So you are calming down the mind, you are not using any noting, rather very silent. Mind is used to inquire to the situation. It's an inquiring mind, silent mind, investigating mind, examining mind. So with that, now you are developing the investigation enlightenment factor. Tang dhammang panyaya pavichinati pavicharati parivimansang apajjati. So Buddha mentioned, so the phenomena, now in this case, it's a bodily phenomena, it's the breath. So you are examining the breath. You are trying to recognize very subtle aspects of the breath. Mindfulness is already established. Now you are developing the clear comprehension. You are trying to look at breath from different sides. And all subtle aspects of the breath, now you are trying to recognize. So this is how the enlightenment factor of investigation, or the Dhamma Vicaya Sambojjhanga, now one is slowly developing. As he is continuing this practice, so he needs a lot of effort. Because when mindfulness alone is established, you may feel little bit of happiness, or you may feel a little bit of calmness, because your mind is not wandering. Your mind is not jumping to the past or to the future here and there. Rather, it can stay in the present moment. So that itself is a very good achievement in a way. And you are mindful. That is good. And if one is simply satisfied with that, one is not going to develop the investigation enlightenment factor. Because you are somewhat contented there. Rather, now you have to put additional effort to do the investigation. Careful examination. So that requires some amount of effort. So you have to activate the mind. You have to encourage the mind to look at these phenomena very carefully in order to recognize its very subtle aspects. So therefore Buddha mentioned, on whatever occasion, tireless energy is aroused in him, in a bhikkhu, who investigates and examines that state with wisdom and embarks upon a full inquiry into it. On that occasion, the energy enlightenment factor is aroused in him. So the investigation requires fair amount of energy. You have to purposely do it. You have to arouse that energy. You have to apply the mind. Have to do the examination, inquiring, exploration. That requires fair amount of energy, fair amount of effort. So this is how the beginning of the enlightenment factor of effort or enlightenment factor of energy is developing. So you are doing it again and again. It's not that you stop it by observing single breath. Rather, you are doing it for many hours, many sittings, many years. Now you are doing it. Again and again you are examining. Now, as a result of that, this effort enlightenment factor is developing. Now, don't think that every time everything is successful. Sometimes things may collapse. Sometimes mind may wander. And sometimes you are encountering different bodily aches and pains. And your mind get feeling little lethargic. So these different obstacles may come on your way. Say certain people may make noise and you may get distracted thoughts. So likewise many other external obstacles also might arise. So you got to overcome all these obstacles, and that is also the development of effort enlightenment factor. When the mind is collapsed, that you have to arouse effort again. You have to sort of encourage the mind again. Even that level, you need effort enlightenment factor. So the driving, arousing, continuation without giving up, even when there are no tangible results, to continue the practice. So all these things are happening because of the effort enlightenment factor. And the careful observation also happens due to effort enlightenment factor, as we can see here. So all these are actually the contribution of effort enlightenment factor. So therefore, encountering obstacles is not really a kind of a downfall. Rather, it's a way to develop enlightenment factor, effort enlightenment factor particularly. So obstacles may definitely come on our way. How to overcome them? How you are strongly continuing your practice without giving up, and how you are examining the phenomena carefully. So all these are now developing in harmony. You have to have mindfulness, you have to have investigation, and you have to have a fair amount of effort to continue the practice. Now, when things are happening successfully, suppose there's a situation, mind is in a fairly good mindfulness, and it examines the phenomena, and there is fair amount of effort available, so the process happens smoothly. Now you don't need to struggle. So whatever the way that you want to develop, now fairly you are successful. So as a result of that, now a little bit of contentment arising in the mind, a little bit of happiness arising in the mind, a little bit of rapture now going to arise in the mind. So this situation where you are getting unworldly kind of happiness, niramisa piti, is where the enlightenment factor of rapture, piti sambojjhanga, is developed. Now typically, how we get happy? So typically we become happy by seeing various beautiful sceneries, by hearing very beautiful songs, maybe music, by getting pleasant odors, by tasting delicious food, and going through some pleasant tangibles, tactile sensations, and even thinking some fantasies. So this is how we are typically getting happiness. So this is the worldly kind of happiness. But here you are doing a different process, and the happiness derived in this process is some sort of an unworldly kind of happiness. So it is not derived through ears, it is not derived through eyes, it is not derived through nose, tongue, body, mind. Rather, it's a kind of a different investigative process you are carefully doing, and as it is successful, and again when the defilements are fairly subsided, 5 hindrances are fairly subsided, now the unworldly kind of happiness is arising, unworldly kind of rapture is arising. So that is why it is called niramisa piti. So this is where Buddha mentioned the enlightenment factor of rapture, Piti Sambojjhanga, is developing. And you are doing it again and again. So one occasion it aroused, say after a couple of hours, then again you had another sitting. At that time also this Piti Sambojjhanga aroused. Another day also it is arising. So likewise, time to time, these different rapturous situations may arise. So that is the development of rapture enlightenment factor. And then when mind is rapturous, now you are feeling comfortable, everything is happening smoothly. So mind doesn't want to wander now. Why typically a mind wanders? It is searching for happiness. Mind wants to be happy. Mind is in search of happiness. If it is not getting it internally, then it is searching it outside, externally. So that is where it is wandering and trying to find out happiness in the external phenomena. But now here in the internal situation, mind is fairly happy. It is rapturous. And it is doing a task, it is successful, and it is therefore happy, rapturous. So there is no need of going external phenomena, going to different external phenomena, because happiness is available inside. Very much like you are self-sufficient. At home you have everything. You don't need to go to the supermarket. Something like that. Now here, Buddha mentioned, on whatever occasion, a bhikkhu closely looks on with equanimity at the mind. So on whatever occasion the mind becomes concentrated in a bhikkhu whose body, no, even not that. On whatever occasion the body and the mind become tranquil in a bhikkhu who is rapturous. So mind is now rapturous, and again body is concentrated, body is calm, tranquil. So the mind also get what we call concentrated, samadhi sambojjhanga. And when samadhi sambojjhanga is there, so these are actually interrelated. Samadhi sambojjhanga happens because mind is rapturous, calm, body also calm, feeling contented, feeling happy. So the samadhi is arising. So when samadhi is also there, so it is making further mind concentrated, tranquil, rapturous. So that is also there. So they are sort of working together. So the tranquility enlightenment factor, the Passadhi Sambojjhanga, is also arising when one is reaching this kind of a situation. Now, when everything happens smoothly, now you are quite happy, contented, body also feeling contented, body also feeling, say, rapturous, feeling like floating, still the investigation is also happening properly. So everything is perfect. Now what you have to do? You got to do nothing. You simply have to observe. So things are happening smoothly. Now you don't need to intervene at all. You don't need to bother. You don't need to put your hand. Rather, you can simply witness the process. Rather than intercepting the process, you simply can witness the process. So this is where the equanimity enlightenment factor is happening. Now you can see it's a kind of a linear process. At the beginning, you simply have to establish mindfulness properly. Unwavering kind of mindfulness has to be available. Then only the beginning of mindfulness enlightenment factor happen. Then you start to investigate. You are trying to look at different phenomena very clearly from different point of view, trying to understand their subtle characteristics. So this is how the investigation enlightenment factor begins. And that requires fair amount of energy. You are sustaining that energy, you are continuing that activity. So the effort enlightenment factor is developing. And when things getting somewhat successful, you are happy, you are rapturous, you are feeling comfortable, contented. So the Piti Sambojjhanga, then Passadhi Sambojjhanga, concentration Sambojjhanga. So that is the, say, tranquility, rupture, and then what you call concentration. So those enlightenment factors are now developing. So when you reach such a balance, so everything is happening smoothly, now you have nothing to do rather than simply observe, silently observe. You can't fall asleep and you can't be restless. You should not apply too much energy. Rather, you have to maintain a very beautiful balance. So at that time, simply you have to watch the process. You simply have to witness the process. Then the enlightenment factor of equanimity is developing. So you can see at the early stages, equanimity is not really developed because you have to do something. You have to handle the situation. You have to carefully examine. You have to arouse that energy. So things are there to do. But as you are continuing, as you are progressing, you are coming to a situation that mind is in a very good balance. You don't need to do something. You rarely have to intervene because things are happening smoothly. At that time, you have to simply observe how things are happening. Kind of a passive observation. That is where the equanimity enlightenment factor is developing. So it's a kind of a linear process happening in the development of enlightenment factors. Let me add a little bit more outside from the Anapanasati Sutta here. So Buddha mentioned among enlightenment factors there are three groups. One group actually have more activity part. Those are fairly what you call arousing of energy. That is the investigation, effort and piti, rupture. So the Dhammavicaya, Viriya and piti. So those three are more prone to a little bit of activation or making the mind more active. On the other hand, the last three, that is tranquility, concentration, equanimity, so they actually calms down the mind, concentrates the mind. They actually making the mind more peaceful. So that belongs to another group. So Buddha mentioned these two groups has to be well balanced. So who is doing the balancing part? The part which is doing the balancing part contained to another group, but that group only has one factor, that is the mindfulness enlightenment factor. So mindfulness has to be available every time, everywhere, and it does the monitoring part, it does the observation parts, and it reports which part has to be either have to adjust, which one has to be increased, which one has to be decreased. So the proper health of the mind is observed by the mindfulness. So when mindfulness is present every time, it understands to which side mind is lenient. If it is lenient to a particular side, then one has to properly adjust it. If one is mind lean onto another side, so one has to properly balance it. Depending on what factor that you have to adjust, developed, with that you are doing it, and then again mind become well balanced. So there's a kind of a very technical part here. So as you are developing enlightenment factor, so further and further you are developing these enlightenment factors, and actually I have discussed only the Kayanupassana part. While developing Kayanupassana, the 4 steps explained here, how one is able to develop these what you call the enlightenment factors. So we, on the next day, we'll discuss while developing Vedananupassana how one is developing 7 enlightenment factors. So today's talk or Sutta teaching I'll wind up here. Now I like to open the session for questions.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu. So if we have any friends joining us for the first time and you're not familiar, you may ask questions right now by raising your hand, or you could submit them anonymously via the chat feature.
Good. No questions today.
I doubt that, Bante. I think everyone is just absorbing
Good,
the
good.
information. You have a hand clap.
Maybe trying to digest what we discussed today.
Yeah, exactly, Bante.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to invite Kumudini for the first question, please.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thero Sarnai Bhante. My question is regarding some meditation, not particular to this sutta teaching today, but another friend of mine who also practices Dhamma practice, she only does walking meditation, and according to the monk who she is following, he advocates that you do only walking meditation because she's a lay person and does not recommend Paryanka Bhavana. What do you have to say about it, Bhante?
Yeah, it depends on her practice. Because sometimes when one is developing Paryanka Bhavana, sitting meditation, mind is more lean on to concentration. So if one is getting too much concentration, probably one may get jump to concentration states, say absorptions, very quickly, and then mind get registered there, and now mindfulness become less, concentration takes the upper hand. So that is a kind of an unbalance happen in the mind. On such situations, so the teachers may advise you got to stop sitting meditation. Now you have to practice more walking part and try to investigate different phenomena and simply maintain mindfulness. Don't go to any concentrated states. So therefore, I need to check her real situation, why she is practicing walking session alone. So there may be reasons, valid reasons to instruct like that.
What she said to me was that that a monk says that for lay people, sitting meditation is not suitable because they are too active and all that. So this is something that they can do all the time, even throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I was under the impression that you have to do both together.
Yes.
So I am not quite.
Yeah, I also agree with you. So we can make use of both postures, and actually not only the both, 4 postures are available. So Buddha mentioned in Satipatthana Sutta, there are 4 postures that you can develop mindfulness. So you're not necessary to limit ourselves only to walking. So you can use all 4 postures and even daily activities to develop mindfulness. So as much as possible you develop mindfulness in different postures, different activities. That is better.
But do you ever reach concentration just by doing walking meditation? The level that you require for attaining, the various levels of enlightenment. That is my question. I thought that you would.
Actually, I can't say no. It depends on the temperament of the person, because certain people may have certain skills, so which are fairly developed, and walking meditation is also contributing fair amount of concentration. And Buddha mentioned in the Chankamanani Sansa Sutta available in Anguttara Nikaya, so where Buddha mentioned 5 benefits of walking meditation. The last one he mentioned is Chankamadigato Samadhi Chirattitiko Hoti. So Buddha mentioned the concentration one gains through walking meditation is long lasting. So that indicates that implies that some amount of concentration is available and developed while you do walking practice. So concentration is also developing, and say the point here is why we use both, particularly the walking and sitting, because walking at the very early stages it is little calming down the mind, reduces distractions and arouse mindfulness. And with that developed states, now you come into the sitting meditation and you can refine those qualities further. You can further strengthen those qualities while maintaining a very still posture. So both postures are therefore fairly helpful to each other. Yeah.
From what I understood is that this monk is saying only do walking meditation. And she has never done not much but sitting meditation at all, because she's following the guidelines of that monk. That's why I was asked.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, and then for the next question, I'd like to invite Chita Devi.
Right, thank you, Jennifer. Actually, following from that question, Bhante, I just mentioned that also sometime last time. I think I also have heard the same thing that the previous speaker said about this walking meditation, and that lay people like ourselves don't benefit much by doing the Anapanasati. I think I mentioned that to you, but anyway, you have given that explanation.
But I can't really agree on that, because there are many people coming to retreats. They are mostly lay people, and many are women. Actually, they do a lot of sitting meditation. Actually, sometimes I have to instruct them. Now you got to reduce sitting and you have to spend more on walking, because they spend fair amount of sitting as well. Because these all are fairly useful, and Buddha mentioned in certain suttas, say during the daytime, while sitting, while walking, you are practicing and eliminating hindrances. While in the evening, you are sitting, walking and eliminating hindrances. While during the night, while engaged in walking, sitting, you are reducing defilements, so the hindrances particularly. So likewise, Buddha very beautifully mentioned in certain sutta. I mean, very carefully everything is mentioned. So, and particularly in order to practice Anapanasati, for a beginner it is very difficult to use walking posture. So you have to have a silent, still posture in order to develop Anapanasati, particularly for a beginner, because it is difficult for one to practice walking alone at the beginning, because mindfulness is not that developed and mind is distracted. So, but anyway, when you develop to some extent, you got to balance. So this balancing part is what doing by the mindfulness. So there you understand, okay, now concentration is too much. Now, okay, the investigation is too much, so the mind become restless. I have to little calm down. So likewise, you need to do the proper observation or proper investigation to the situation. What is the situation right now happening? Accordingly, you have to do the adjustments.
Yes, Bhante, because I also find that I have benefited by sitting meditation. So I understand what you're saying. So going to the, I just want to clarify a few points. And in the Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, he explains that the third trait is first, second, third tetrad, the mind. He says experiencing the mind is to be understood by way of the four jhanas. So he says he goes straight into that. Yes, so gladdening the mind is explained either as attainment of the two jhanas containing rapture, or as penetration of those jhanas with insight as subject to distraction, etc. Concentrating the mind refers either to the concentration pertaining to the jhana or to the momentary concentration that arises along with insight, liberating the mind.
So actually, I have taken the second approach. So one is having the momentary concentration, not rather into the absorption part.
Yes, I understood. Yeah, you explained that some time ago, Bhante. So basically, we can do both if we want to, but of course, from gaining, because we want to gain wisdom, it's better to go via the insight path. Yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I have taken, because you see, so when you reach Dhammanupassana, the emphasis is more given to the Vipassana, And it is not only to the Dhammanupassana. It is relevant to Kayanupassana, it is relevant to Vedananupassana, it is relevant to Chittanupassana. So therefore, if one is continuing one's approach with investigative manner, so it is not difficult for one to develop various insights. So time to time, of course, may be able to get into absorptions, or maybe because mind is really free from defilements, and automatically mind feel happy, mind feel concentrated, feel concentrated, as we discussed even today, say the concentration, enlightenment factor, and tranquility, equanimity. So they are working together, and when one is becoming more and more successful, so it is very much like a jhana. So so you can't say directly it is the first and second. So first and second is the one, of course, which is having rupture available. The third, fourth doesn't have rupture. So in a way one can argue, so this approach can be used to develop jhana, but I feel the purpose of the sutta is not really jhana, but more into the insights.
Okay. So then coming to the fourth tetrad, he's talking about contemplating impermanence, and you said we can relate it to all three: the body, the feelings, and the mind.
Yes.
Now, when he says then contemplate, I shall breathe in, contemplate fading away, is that vaya? That Udaya vaya?
Yes. Fading away, we can say it as vaya. Yes.
Vaya. And then we say cessation, which is nirodha. So cessation of the breath, the feelings, the thought. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Then when we come to the contemplating relinquishment, are we relinquishing the 4-5 hindrances, or what are we relinquishing?
Whatever arising. Say whatever the conditioned phenomena arising, so you got to relinquish. So you understood them as impermanent, you understood their fading away nature, their transient nature. So no point of holding them, no point of grasping them. As a result of that, now you are having the attitude of relinquishment. So you are quite ready to relinquish. At the beginning, you might be doing it purposely by seeing their impermanence, by seeing their fading away nature. You are educating the mind to relinquish. But later mind knows, even when they are arising, they know, and mind knows they are impermanent. And you don't need to really bother looking at the complete cycle, how they are arising and passing away. You are quite ready to relinquish. So mind is attuned to relinquish. So therefore, as you progress more and more, you don't need to even look at the full cycle of each phenomena, how they are quick arising and maybe momentary existence, and then how they are fading away, and you are doing it again and again for many thousands of phenomena, because you have seen that, you have gone through it. Now you are ready to relinquish. Instead of attaching, instead of grasping, mind is more attuned to relinquish. So then the number 16 become more prominent, and mind is readily relinquish phenomena. And once you relinquish, what is available?
Nothing.
Exactly. So basically nothing is there. So you can't say really nothing, in the sense you have mindfulness, you have some pure awareness, you have some effortless mindfulness. It is, without any phenomena. So that is the beauty of the practice, where you get very pure type of consciousness without any sensual participation. It's not a sensory consciousness. It is not a kind of a deliberate mindfulness. It is a kind of a spacious kind of awareness, a very effortless awareness, intuitive awareness, and it is not established anywhere. So that is we can see the culmination of the practice. So that is where the liberating of the mind, as number 12 explained, so that is being further and further seasoned or cultivated by doing further vipassana. And now only one can say, okay, you have reached some amount of understanding or some amount of maturity in the practice, and that has to be further developed, so that we actually can explain when we are going to explain knowledge and freedom, Vijja and Vimutti. In the latter section of this Anapanasati Sutta, Buddha explained that. So likewise, one reaches that freedom of mind with the practice.
Yes, Bhante, because I sometimes when I do this, I think that the second part where you have the tranquility and concentration, I can sit for a long, if I want to, for a long time in a very nice place I come to, Bhante, and I can just be there,
Right. Correct.
So I presume that is you just be there. You don't have to do anything.
Exactly. Yes. But the thing is, that also has to be available sometimes, and you have to enjoy that in order to nourish the mind. But on the other hand, you have to, if you have to further progress in your practice, you have to reduce the defilements, you have to address the defilements, you have to recognize defilements, what are the shortcomings available in the mind, what are the patterns also governing in the mind. So those are the investigation part. In order to do that, you have to loosen the concentration and allow various defilements or graspings to happen if they are available.
Yeah, I sort of mentioned that to you last time that
yes,
I am in that state because the mind is so peaceful that nothing, no defilements come. I'm watching for defilements.
Right, it may not happen.
Something will come.
Yes.
But nothing bad comes.
Yes, true.
Because that is a condition that has come in where those, only if you are agitated that all those awful defilements come, Bhante. That's how I feel. I don't know.
Correct.
Different people are different.
Yeah, if you get agitated, defilements may come.
Yeah,
and again, when your mind has less concentration, again the defilement may come. So, now here, the arising of defilements, that now you are not looking with a kind of a negative perspective, rather you look at them as a way of progressing. So they are a teacher now. They are telling you, they are indicating that still certain tendencies are available in the mind. You still have to work out. You still have to progress. You have to carefully observe them and not to get deluded by them.
No, Bhante. So I practice in real life when I see all these other, irritation, anger, ill will, or whatever all those hindrances come in. Then I contemplate at that time,
Correct.
Because obviously we have to recognize it and we have to work with it.
Exactly.
Because we are certainly not perfect, we have all these departments. But in my meditation, I don't know, I come to that level where I'm watching, but it doesn't come, but it's okay. Maybe some other time it will.
Yes.
Maybe as I go along, I don't know. But in the real life, I do it because that is a very good opportunity, when we come into play.
Exactly.
When we are in the real world coming, in situations and we face other people and other situations and we don't agree all the time with other people, then that's also a good time to put this into and practice the relinquishment.
Exactly. Yes.
At a grosser level, obviously, because we are not at that level of meditation.
Yeah.
But that is also an opportunity to do practice.
Yes, an opportunity. And again, we can't say we are not in a meditation, because meditation is the bhavana. Meditation is the development of the mind. So here also we are developing the mind. Because we can carefully investigate different phenomena, different thoughts, patterns, etc. Because we have fair amount of mindfulness available, clarity of mind is available, fair amount of wisdom is available. As a result of that, now you are not allowing the mind to decline, rather you are progressing without getting attached to those defilements. So it's a progress, it's a development. So therefore it is also a meditation.
Yes. Okay, Bhante, thank you for that.
Okay,
Bhante, the next question that I received is, Dear Bhante, how can one know when one is in a jhana state versus number 16, contemplating relinquishment? where there's nothing and mind has relinquished and there's just awareness. I'm not sure which state I am experiencing.
Yeah. So actually for a beginner it is difficult to distinguish whether one is in a jhana or whether one is in a proper relinquishment came through proper vipassana practice. Actually in a way one can say because jhana you don't need any much of investigation, you can simply concentrate even at the Anapanasati level. Say you simply absorb to the, say you are simply observing breath and later you reduce investigation, you improve concentration. As a result of that, mind get absorbed to the various signs available. Say mind may manifest as a nimitta, as a sign, as a bright light, and now you are looking at it, and as a result of that you get absorbed to it. Now you haven't gone any kind of an investigation. So you haven't gone careful examination of breath, whether it is long, short, or whether it is middle, or the beginning, middle, end. So likewise, or any other insights you haven't gone through, but you simply develop concentration. So in order to develop concentration, you don't need much of investigation. Rather, it's a matter of keeping your attention for a long time at a one point. Then the concentration develops, enhances, and later you can absorb to that. But on the other hand, when we consider number 16, so you have gone through a lot of process. You have gone through Anapanasati, fair amount of investigation has happened. As a result of that investigation, the calming down has happened. The tranquilizing of bodily formations happened. Number 4. Then you observe different feelings, perceptions. There also you have fair amount of wisdom not to get deluded by them, rather allowing them to pass by, and as a result of that the perceptions and feelings also calm down. Now you come to Chittanupassana, different mental formations arise, maybe lustful thoughts, maybe angry thoughts, maybe wholesome thoughts, maybe unwholesome thoughts. So you are looking at everything objectively. So this is a fair amount of wisdom. And as a result of that such approach, now that also start to calm down. And there is nothing to grasp now. Mind has nothing to grasp. No objects, no bodily formations, no verbal formations, no mental formations. Nothing is there. As a result of that, mind get liberated. As a result of that, mind is freed. So that freedom is what one is experiencing in number 16. So whatever the conditioned phenomena at all arising, so you are ready to relinquish them. So once you relinquish them, where you are resting, that is again on the freedom of mind. So there's a big difference. In the jhana, mind is locked or mind is latched onto a particular phenomena. Say in Anapanasati, if you purely consider jhana, so you are getting Anapanasati nimitta, concentration sign through the Anapanasati by developing concentration, developing samatha practice using Anapanasati. So and then you are watching that nimitta, that sign, and ultimately mind become that sign. In other terms, mind and that sign become one. So very much like it's a kind of a unity between that sign and the mind. So very much like mind has locked with that sign. Complete opposite is available in Vipassana. You have nothing to latch on to. You have nothing to grasp. Mind has no place to establish at all. As a result of that, mind is released. So that there's a complete opposite. So that is what we talk in the relinquishment part. So whatever the conditioned phenomena you are ready to relinquish, and once everything is relinquished, mind is free. In that freedom now mind is resting. So that is another way of, one can say, a type of jhana, which is sometimes people or teachers explain them as vipassana jhana. They are quite different from the samatha jhana. Sampajananas are always attached to an object, always bound to an object. But on the other hand, in the Vipassana, so it is not bound to an object. So that is the difference.
Thank you, Bhante. I'd like to invite Indira to please ask the next question.
Avasarai Bhante, can you again explain this balancing part of this enlightenment factors?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, you need to understand, now I am showing in the 7 enlightenment factors, this investigation, effort, rupture, 2, 3, 4. The factors 2, 3, 4, Buddha mentioned, are more prone to kind of activating the mind. So they are more active parts, active components. On the other hand, 5, 6, 7, tranquility, concentration, equanimity, they are more prone to tranquilizing the mind, calming down the mind. So that is another group. Now these two groups, therefore, are very much opposite to each other. One group is more into the activation part, the other group is more into the tranquilizing part. So therefore one has to maintain the balance of these two groups. So how one is determining which group is too high, which group is too low. So that determination is done by mindfulness. Therefore Buddha mentioned mindfulness has to be available every time in order to do this monitoring. So mindfulness do the monitoring task, and it will report, okay, now say the first group is too much, so you have to reduce that, you have to improve the second group. Suppose on another occasion, say mindfulness is reporting that, okay, now mind is becoming lethargic, mind is becoming drowsy, you should not practice therefore the second group, instead you have to practice the first group. Further, you have to activate the mind, you have to arouse energy. So likewise, the balancing has to happen dynamically as you continue the practice. So you can't say every time I have to develop this or that. Rather, even during the day practice, even during the single session. So these two groups may vary may vary, and the mindfulness will report it, and accordingly you have to do the balancing. Yeah.
And another question that I received, Bhante, says, Dear Bhante, can you please explain in more detail at what point or what are the signs which indicates one has enough concentration and mindfulness and one can let go of knowing the breath by the nostril to pay attention to the body or Vedana Nupassana?
Yeah. So basically, at the beginning, say you can clearly see the breath. Say it is in breath, you are sure about it, and this is the out breath, you are sure about it. So that is the, say, establishment of mindfulness. And then you start to see whether it is long, short. So that is how you are slowly putting investigation into the picture. Now you are trying to clearly know the phenomena. You are clearly trying to know the breath. Now as a result of that, you are coming to number 3, experiencing the whole body of breath, where you are trying to see the beginning of the in-breath, middle and the end. You are trying to see the beginning of out-breath, middle and the end. Now this is a very careful observation. And when you are continuing that, the interesting thing happens. You start to feel more and more subtle aspects of the breath continuously, and after a particular threshold, you turn to the other side, where the different phenomena now start to fade away and they become blurred. Now you can't distinguish whether it is the in-breath or out-breath. No, previously it is quite obvious, this is the in-breath, this is the out-breath, and you have valid reasons to indicate. But now you reach a situation, there are no such indicators at all, and you can't distinguish whether this is the in-breath or out-breath. And this may be, we can say, you have reached what you call a fair amount of concentration, which is enough to practice Vedananupassana, which is enough to practice particularly the Vipassana, and what you call necessary amount of concentration is built up. So with these indicators you can know, okay, now I have reached the necessary amount of concentration. Now I can practice Vedananupassana. Actually when you reach this stage, so automatically there may be a situation that mind feel happy, mind feel contented, and you feel rapturous. So automatically also these things may happen most of the time, because mind is already calmed down, bodily formations are calmed down. Then automatically, then you are getting number 5, the experiencing rapture, experiencing happiness. Those things, number 5 and 6, may automatically even happen. At that time, definitely you have to practice Vedananupassana. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante. And one more question. Bhante, in the Anapanasati Sutta, the jhana are explained in a purely Vipassana method, i.e. contemplating Dhamma at each stage. There's no absorption. Can you please give some more information? Teruwan Sannai.
Anapanasati Sutta. Anapanasati Sutta. I need to check that. I can't exactly remember the sutta. So you are fairly trying to, support my understanding of Anapanasati Sutta, but I like to go through Anapanasati Sutta in order to give more information. I can't actually. Recently, I didn't go through that, so I'll explain that next time. Please, Jennifer, remind me next time as the first question. Then I'll explain that.
Okay, sure, no problem, Bhante.
Yeah.
I believe that's the last question. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, Bhante,
Okay.
Yeah, I think we are all done with questions today.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have spent almost 1 hour in this, more than 1 hour, 1 and 15 minutes in this sutta discussion, and with that we were able to accumulate fair amount of merits. Let's share these merits by reciting traditional verses. Ettavata ca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata ca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata ca amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha deva naga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mamparang. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Idang vo ñātīnaṁ hotu sukitā huntu ñātayo. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Imina punya kammena māme bāla samāgamo satang samāgamo hotu yāva nibbāna pattiyā. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.